Alright, welcome to the video. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about things to consider before pulling for FEIXIAO. So without further ado, let's get into it. These are the main points that I want to go through. And yeah, let's just start off with the first one, which is the banner. So I wanted to talk about who is rerunning with FEIXIAO. And it's a very interesting one because we actually have 3 reruns, and the reruns are Kafka, Black Swan, and Robin. It is obviously very interesting because this is the first time for Star Rail to have 3 different reruns on one patch, and it's definitely new and it took me by surprise. The thing with this is that FEIXIAO is actually very good with Robin, so you might actually want to consider getting Robin if you want her premium team. So it is obviously a bit annoying the fact that she's on the same patch, because if you only saved for FEIXIAO, you might not have enough for the Robin pulls, which obviously means that you have to wait for we don't know how long till she comes back. So the 2 other characters are Kafka and Black Swan, which also is pretty annoying because Kafka and Black Swan actually works very well together. They are each other's greatest teammate. If you don't have both of them and you want a dot team, it means that you have to pull both of them in the same patch, which obviously can cost a lot of jades, especially if you want the light cones as well. Now, I don't really want to go into who you should pull, but I do want to say that you can make FEIXIAO work without Robin, and you can also make Robin work without FEIXIAO. Obviously, if you do want FEIXIAO, you should just pull her, because you are actually able to make a pretty decent team with 4-star characters, which I will get into later in the video. Okay, so let's move on to the 4-stars now. The 4-stars are going to be Mose, Asta, and Luca. As I mentioned before, you can make a great 4-star team with FEIXIAO, and Mose is in that team. He's pretty decent with FEIXIAO. He's able to do follow-up attacks, which FEIXIAO can benefit from, and if I'm not mistaken, he's also able to debuff the enemy, which of course is great for FEIXIAO as well. I'm not sure about his damage, but I think that if you build him correctly, you can probably dish out some pretty decent damage with him. Now, Asta isn't really the greatest option, but she's not bad either. She's a harmony character, which obviously makes her usable in some teams, but then again, there are better options like Robin or Runmei, who obviously are 5-stars. But if you are a meta player, you should have one of them or both of them, because they are definitely very good characters. But then again, if you don't have them, Asta is a decent replacement. Now for Luca, if you have Boothill, then Boothill is just straight up better than Luca. But Luca can definitely do decent break damage with a break build, but you definitely do need to have high break damage as well as high speed, just to be able to do decent amount of damage, which can be annoying of course. But the thing is, a break team do want Runmei. However, Runmei is already occupied in the super break team. And also, Luca in a dot team isn't really the greatest either, because you already have Black Swan and Kafka, and you usually want a harmony character as the 3rd one and then a sustainer as the 4th one. So it's really hard to find a place for Luca in this meta at the moment. Now for the rating, if I should give the banners a rating from 1 to 10, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I do think that the banner can get better with someone like Gallagher, or maybe like Pela or Tingyun. If it was Pela and Tingyun instead of Luca and Asta, I do think that the banner would go up to a 10 out of 10. However, I do also think that the banner could get worse if we got Hook and Dan Hong in instead of like Mose. I do think that a 6 out of 10 is pretty fair. Now next up is the light cone options and light cone banner. So obviously the light cone that comes with FEIXIAO is her best in slot, but if you don't want it, there could be some alternatives. However, I do think that there might be a big gap between her best in slot and the other light cones. I just want to quickly go over the 4-stars before I talk about her light cone. So we have Pearls of Resolution, we have Birth, and we have Swordplay. Pearls is very good for debuffers like Pela, who already does a lot of defense shredding, so it's definitely a great option for her. Birth is pretty decent in pure fiction if you are struggling or you just don't have a good light cone for your erudition characters. And then Swordplay is probably one of the better 4-star options for FEIXIAO if you don't want her signature light cone. Now I wanted to talk about her alternatives if you don't want her light cone. And again, like I just mentioned, I think Swordplay could be a pretty decent option. But to be honest, I don't really think that any of the 4-star options are really that great. Maybe only Silent Remains is pretty decent, or maybe a Final Victor could also be pretty good. But then again, I do think that Swordplay actually could be the best option. Now for the 5-star light cones, I do think that Boothill's light cone is pretty useless on her, but the other ones are actually pretty decent. I think Cruising in the Stellar Sea is a good free-to-play option. Everyone should have that, or everyone can get that. For the limited ones, we have the Sealay one, which is alright, I think. It does give crit rate, which is good for her of course, but I actually do think that Dr. Ratio's light cone could be very good on her if you're able to debuff the enemy up to 3 times. You do need to know that Topaz is only able to do 1 debuff unless you have her E1 and S1, which then gives you up to 3 debuffs. And then since we're talking about Topaz S1, her light cone on FEIXIAO should be pretty alright as well, because it does buff follow-up damage as well as gives crit rate. Now, is her light cone versatile? I actually don't think it is. If you do want to play FEIXIAO, I don't think it's a bad idea to go for her light cone, because I do think that the 4-star alternatives are pretty mid compared to her own light cone. So all in all, if you're considering pulling for FEIXIAO, you might also want to get her light cone. Now, I want to talk about her teams. She can actually have a lot of working teams that doesn't really require any specific like 5-star. However, if you want to like upgrade it and get a premium team, her premium team is definitely very strong. So the best team is theoretically FEIXIAO, Topaz, Robin, and Aventurine. I mean, that team is great, right? Because FEIXIAO and Topaz are able to dish out a lot of damage. FEIXIAO is able to capitalize on Topaz's debuff, and then you're able to action advance both FEIXIAO and Topaz with Robin, which then obviously makes you go more, and it's just a great team in general. Now, for the alternatives, I don't want to really make the team, but more so just mention the characters. You can use Mose, March 7th, Hunt Path, as well as Jiao. Those characters are pretty decent. March is able to buff and just do her follow-up attacks. Mose is obviously able to do follow-up attacks and just debuff. Jiao is also able to debuff and also just able to make the enemy take more damage. And all three of those are fine. So if you don't have Topaz or Robin, you can just swap them for Mose or March. Now for the sustainer, if you don't have Aventurine, I just think that any sustainer should be fine. Obviously, we are getting a new sustainer, which I will talk about in a moment. But yeah, any sustainer should be fine if you don't have Aventurine. However, Aventurine is definitely the best one. Now, what alternatives does FEIXIAO have in terms of like the unit herself? So essentially, if you don't want FEIXIAO, you can just use Dr. Ratio or Topaz. And if you don't really want to use those, but you'd want a follow-up team, then FEIXIAO is definitely a thing to consider. Now, I want to talk about the Eidolons. I don't think we got the details for her Eidolons. Let's just say that if you want to go for Eidolons, I do think that E2 is probably a very good stopping point. E1 is also great. Obviously, E0 is fine, but if you want Eidolons, E2 is a great stopping point. Now, for future characters, I'm talking about drip marketing. We do know that in the next half we are getting Lingsha, and then in the next patch we are getting Rappa. Now, I do think that Lingsha could be good with FEIXIAO because she does follow up attacks, but to be honest, I don't really think she is better than Aventurine. But we do have to see though, we don't really know what she exactly does yet, so we just have to wait and see. But even if she is better, I don't think that it's by a lot. Now for Rappa, we don't really know what she does, so we don't really know if she works well together with FEIXIAO. However, we do know that Rappa is actually the only new character in the next patch, which makes it pretty interesting, because if you actually don't want Rappa, you can just go ham in this patch if you want to, and then just save up the whole of next patch. But of course that's up to you, because you know, like there could be reruns that you want, or like we might find out that Rappa is actually just the most broken character there is. So yeah, obviously just keep that in mind before pulling for FEIXIAO or just using everything on FEIXIAO. Now we might be going back to Penacony, I'm not really too sure, because Rappa is a Galaxy Ranger. So who knows, maybe we will be getting new Penacony characters, or maybe some old ones that we haven't gotten yet. So yeah, that's also a thing to consider before pulling for FEIXIAO. Now, how much value will the other characters offer compared to FEIXIAO? I do think that Lingsha will probably offer more value because she is a sustainer, and the nature of sustainers and DPS characters are very different. DPS characters are sometimes very dependent on the debuff from MOC as well as the enemies, because if you, let's just say that you're fighting against enemies who aren't weak to wind, then FEIXIAO could maybe fall off a bit, but of course we will see about that. Maybe she's just in the next Acheron and she will just be broken, or she could just be power crept within the next 2 patches. And for the sustainers, it don't really matter, because if the enemy isn't weak to fire, Lingsha don't really care. I don't think she's just there to heal up your team and cleanse your team. And also you can run her with Firefly, who is also able to just implant fire weakness. Now for Rappa, I don't really think it's a great comparison, because I do probably think that she's made for pure fiction, because she's an erudition character, and obviously FEIXIAO is a hunt character, so we don't really know how each of the characters will age out. So I don't think it's a very fair comparison to really make between those two. But obviously if you have already decided what to do, or you just like FEIXIAO, then I honestly just think that you should go for her. It is definitely a tough decision in this patch because we are getting 3 reruns. But yeah, I am personally getting Robin and FEIXIAO. I don't have Robin, I don't have FEIXIAO. I do like both of them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you're getting FEIXIAO, or let me know which of the reruns you're going for. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.